NPR News. Episcopal Church refuses to settle white Afrikaners, citing moral opposition. Really, what's their moral opposition in this? Is it because these Afrikaners are white? Is that their moral opposition? You can have a moral point of view that is any which way. They're holding signs here in this image. If you're not watching, is one woman, the sign says, "Thank God for President Trump." And there's just a group of white people that look like they're, trying to get something done. It says underneath the image, white South Africans demonstrate in support of President Trump in front of the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria, South Africa on February 15th. In a striking move that ends a nearly 4-decade-old relationship between the federal government and the Episcopal Church, the denomination announced on Monday that it is terminating its partnership with the government to resettle refugees, citing moral opposition to settling white Afrikaners from South Africa who have been classified as refugees by President Trump's administration. Oh, so in other words, you don't want to resettle white people. Is it because they're white? I'm assuming that's why. I don't know. Let's find out if it says it here. In a letter sent to members of the church, the Most Reverend Sean Rowe, the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, said that 2 weeks ago, the government informed Episcopal Migration Ministries that under the terms of our federal grant, we are expected to resettle white Afrikaners from South Africa, whom the U.S. government has classified as refugees. Okay, so you have a partnership, follow through on your end of it. The request, Rowe said, it crossed a moral line for the Episcopal Church, which is part of the global Anglican Communion, which boasts among its leaders the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, a celebrated and vocal opponent to apartheid in South Africa. Okay, so these Afrikaners that are asking to be resettled, did they have anything to do with apartheid? And apartheid was ended 30 years ago. It started in 1948. So were these Afrikaners participating in apartheid, or were they key in dismantling apartheid, or were they born after apartheid ended? Because you can be well into adulthood and never known a thing about apartheid, never lived under apartheid in South Africa. So your whole moral argument here is seeming pretty flimsy, Episcopal Church. I do want to thank everybody for stopping by and supporting my channel. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed. YouTube does unsubscribe people. You can find me on Rumble and on Twitter. Let's get back to this article. In light of our church's steadfast commitment to racial justice and reconciliation in our historic ties with Anglican Church of South Africa, we are not able to take this step, Rowe wrote. Accordingly, we have determined that by the end of the federal fiscal year, we will conclude our refugee resettlement grant agreements with the U.S. federal government. Well, I mean, do you get any of that grant money for yourselves, for your church, to improve the church or to improve your lives? Or does it all go to the refugees? Because if any of it goes to you, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Over what? Your petty, superficial arguments that really have nothing to do with anything? Well, let's find out. Maybe they have good arguments. I don't know. Let's see what it says in this article here. Rowe stressed that while Episcopal Migration Ministries will seek to wind down all federally funded services by the end of the federal fiscal year in September, the denomination will continue to support immigrants and refugees in other ways, such as offering aid to refugees who have already been resettled. Well, that's nice of them. Mighty white of them, right? The announcement came just as flights with Afrikaners were scheduled to arrive at Washington Dulles International Airport outside of Washington, D.C., the first batch of entries after Trump declared via a February executive order that the U.S. would take in Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination. The South African government has stridently denied allegations of systemic racial animus, as has a coalition of white religious leaders in the region that includes many Anglicans. Yeah, well, the U.S. government also said the border was secure when millions of people were pouring over it every year. So the government, they're a bastion of truth. That's all they are. Is that they cannot lie. They literally can't. Anyway, back to reality here, where governments lie persistently, where they cover up things, and where I've seen documentaries of Afrikaners being the victims of cruel criminal gangs, white Afrikaners being victims of cruel criminal gangs, targeting white people specifically. I don't know what to tell you. We see this all over alternative media, and I've seen stuff for years now, and I know people from South Africa, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they got the bombshell argument in here. Let's find out. The stated reasons for Trump's actions are claims of victimization, violence, and hateful rhetoric against white people in South Africa, along with legislation providing for the expropriation of land without compensation. Didn't we hear chanting, "Kill the Boer"? referring to the white farmers.
Shoot to kill. Hamaza. Kill the poor. The farmer. Kill the poor. The farmer. Brr, pa. Pa. Brr, pa. Pa. Attention.
That sounds like hateful rhetoric to me. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, that's not hateful, right? It's just threats. It's just calls for violence. Call to action. That's all it is. Okay. Read the letter from white South African religious leaders, which included among its 4 authors an Anglican priest. As white South Africans in active leadership within the Christian community, representing diverse political and theological perspectives, we unanimously rejected these claims. Oh, yeah, the church, they never lie either, right? The church has never lied to me. What was that thing that the church always tells me? What was that thing? Oh, yeah. The church always tells me there's some invisible man living up in the clouds who knows everything and can control everything, yet somehow I have free will. Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, they don't ever lie to me. Nope, never ever. In addition to ties with Tutu, the Episcopal Church has a long history of advocating against apartheid in South Africa. A long history for something that ended 30 years ago, and a long history for something that started in 1948, ended in 1995, roughly. 48 to 95. Wasn't even 50 years before they got rid of apartheid. So define long history for me. Okay. It first began altering its financial holdings in the region in 1966, and by the mid-1980s, the church voted to divest from companies doing business in South Africa. Again, are you shooting yourself in the foot? Let me do that. Rowe noted that his announcement comes as the Trump administration has otherwise all but frozen the refugee program, with Afrikaners among the few and possibly only people granted entry as refugees since January. Shortly after he was sworn in, Trump signed an executive order that essentially halted the refugee program and stopped payments to organizations that assist with refugee resettlement, including, according to one group, payments for work already performed. Well, that's not okay. You got to pay the people who've already done the work. Even if they're illegals, they should get paid for already having done the work. Now, Trump probably has seen the same things that I've seen, where we see, kill the boar. We see postings about Afrikaners being forced off their land, the land being gifted to black South Africans, being, the claim being that this is originally their land, so therefore white people have no claim to it, etc., those sorts of things. And so he also probably has seen that, hey, the vast majority of people pouring over the border illegally and illegally are not refugees. And many of those, even who are claiming refugee status, don't have a claim to refugee status. They're just escaping poverty. They just want a better life. They just want all the handouts that the United States has to give them. So he's like, no more refugees. Oh, okay, I see that in South Africa, they are going after the white people who live there. We can bring them in and save them. That change has left refugees, including Christians, fleeing religious persecution without a clear path forward, and has forced the 10 refugee resettlement groups, 7 of which are faith-based, to lay off scores of workers while still trying to support refugees who had recently arrived. 4 of the faith groups have since filed 2 separate lawsuits, one of which recently resulted in a ruling that should have restarted the program. However, refugee groups have accused the government of delaying compliance with the court order. I don't know if that's true. I mean, they're just saying they're claiming that here, so I don't know. A representative for Church World Service, which is among the groups currently suing the administration, said the organization has agreed to support one family through remote services, but pointed to an additional statement from last week that voiced ongoing frustration with the government's actions. Okay, they have ongoing frustration. So I'm going to point, look, we have ongoing frustrations. Who cares? These groups that are being decimated, these refugee support groups that are being decimated, well, if there's no refugees, then you shouldn't have a job helping refugees. I'm sorry that you're out of a job. I'm sorry if there's people who legitimately are refugees and come here and get turned away, but the country can't take everybody. We are concerned that the U.S. government has chosen to fast-track the admission of Afrikaners while actively fighting court orders to provide life-saving resettlement to other refugee populations who are in desperate need of resettlement, Rick Santos, head of the World Church, said in a statement last week. By resettling this population, the government is demonstrating that it still has the capacity to quickly screen, process, and depart refugees to the United States. It's time for the administration to honor our nation's commitment to the thousands of refugee families it abandoned with its cruel and illegal executive order. Okay. They're comparing apples and oranges. I mean, the saying goes, I don't like that saying because apples and oranges are pretty comparable, actually. But what is it, like 90, not 90, like 50 Afrikaners that we've led into the country now? 50. Oh, it can really quickly resettle these 50. Yeah, there's 50 of them. We got plenty of room for 50. You're talking about thousands of families. It said right here, it says thousands of families. Where's it at? Thousands of refugee families, which is a lie. It's at a bare minimum hundreds of thousands. It's probably millions of these so-called, quote, refugee families that are not actually refugee families. They're not refugees at all. So they're lying here. Matthew Sorenz, Vice President of Advocacy and Policy at World Relief, an evangelical Christian group that helps resettle refugees, said in an email that his group anticipates serving a small number of the arrivals who qualify for Office of Refugee Resettlement funded services. But he said the situation is complicated by the reality that the government is not bringing them to the U.S. through the traditional State Department initial resettlement process, where World Relief has historically been one of the 10 private agencies that implement this public-private partnership because that process remains suspended. He added, our primary response to this situation is to continue to urge the administration to resume their initial resettlement process for a broad range of individuals who have fled persecution on account of their faith, political opinion, race, or other reasons outlined under U.S. law, and to highlight the support for doing so from the evangelical Christians who are World Relief's core base of support, including some very conservative evangelicals who see refugee resettlement as a vital tool to protect those denied religious freedom abroad. So there's no comments here. It just goes down into more articles. But these people are saying that we shouldn't resettle these people because they're not persecuted and they supported apartheid. Well, I can tell you this, that the people I know who are here from South Africa came here after apartheid ended because they saw the crime increase. And they're like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want to have to walk down the street and be accosted on a regular basis. So I'm going to leave. Some of these people I know, they talk to their friends back in South Africa, and they told me about like this nice metropolitan area where there's like shops and pubs and restaurants, and it's a pedestrianized area with fountains, and it's just a really nice commercial area for people to spend time at and, you know, be social and do activities and things. And they say it's gone now. It's gone because of neglect. Because the people running the show now are neglecting these nicer areas. They don't care. It wasn't intentionally destroyed. It's just like, okay, well, we're going to be neglectful. I mean, there probably was some intentional destruction, but not large-scale intentional destruction. It's like, oh, I'm going to smash these windows. Oh, I'm going to tear down this statue. Things like that. What are you going to do? How are you going to live in a country like that where you're the minority? You're obviously the minority because you can just look at the white people and say, okay, you're not black. We're going to get you. Then you're being targeted on top of that. You got to leave. And it's a problem in this country, in the United States, where white people are not given the same as other groups of people, where men are not given the same as women, where we're told that women's suffering is important and men's suffering is not. So there are a lot of bad things that are going on in the world, and you know, we need to stand up and fight against these things. Anyway, thank you for watching again. I appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next video.